The gender policy had its origins in a plenary assembly of the bishops of India, which was in 2008. And actually prior to this, the secretary of the CBCI Commission for Women, she had proposed the topic of empowerment of women in the church and society. And this topic was approved by the bishops, by their standing committee, and so that became the theme for their meeting. And so about 2 years almost before the meeting, the preparation started. And what was good about this was that the commission secretary, that is Sister Lily Francis, she was given a free hand in terms of preparing for this meeting. So what she did was she held a national consultation, and she held 12 regional consultations, and at these were consultations of grassroots people, people in various various church bodies, okay, both men and women. And the idea behind this was, first of all, to get a kind of a feeling of what was happening with women at these various levels and in these various bodies. And secondly, to get from the women recommendations of what they would like on the agenda of the bishops' meeting. And this was very important. Now, the meeting itself, I think, was a kind of a shall I say, something, a milestone in I call it the his story of the church, because till then it's been only the bishops at the bishops' meeting. But at this meeting, first of all, the agenda was set by the women, not the bishops, and the bishops agreed to it. We had 2 keynote speakers, I was one of them, who were women, and then there were 3 other panelists who were also women. And so the bishops were all there listening to us. And besides that, there were 40 other women who were invited to this meeting, and they were not there just as observers, but they participated in all the group discussions and everything. And then at the end of it, after every assembly, the bishops usually bring out a statement and recommendations, and it was really very nice to be invited by the bishops to be on that drafting committee of the bishop statement. So we were 6 of us, 3 bishops and 3 women, Lily Francis, Dr. Rita Narona, who was the other keynote speaker, and myself. And so the 6 of us were there for the statement, and we put it together. And one of the recommendations at that meeting was to have a gender policy in place, and this would be time bound. So it would be up within the next 2 years when the next plenary assembly would happen. So that's where the gender policy came into play. Sister Lily Francis put together a drafting committee. We were 6 of us on that committee. I was one of the 6, and we worked for 2 years along with constantly consulting with regional secretaries, the commission secretaries, and finally we put together this policy. This was then given back to the CBCI standing committee. They formed a group. I think there were about 5 bishops maybe. They went through the policy, they did their editing, after all they were the one, it was going to be their policy, they were the ones who were going to own it. And then this policy was passed at the 2010 plenary assembly. So on the 24th of April 2010, the policy was released, and well, that's the gender policy, and that's how it came into being. Key phrase would be to have a gender just church and society. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, it's been put out in various ways. So what the policy has done is it's looked at the situation of India, of women in India. It has looked at what has been the church's contribution to the concerns of women. Then it's looked at certain areas in which work needs to be done. The objectives, it's got a vision statement, and the vision statement basically is that it looks at Jesus's vision in terms of being there for the Anawim, and women are the lowest of the low among those, the oppressed. It also is based on the biblical Genesis, that we are all created, both man and woman are created in the image of God. So this is the foundation on which the theological foundation on which the policy is based. And of course, St. Paul's, in Christ there is neither male nor female, so that also is at the theological basis. In terms of what does it contain, there are certain principles, feminist principles on which this policy is based. And certain aspects, just to give you one mainly, which is used very widely in feminist circles, is the whole aspect of gender mainstreaming, okay, where it talks about any planned policy has to be assessed in terms of the effect that it has on, the effect that it has on women. So whether it's a policy, whether it's a law, whether it's any practice, or also in terms of the funding that goes out towards all of this. So the gender budgeting, that's also an important thing. So, so it's got some principles which have been put in place and which can be widely used. And then of course there's a breakup. So it talks of women in the family, it talks of women in the workplace, women in special circumstances. So for instance, trafficking of women, violence against women. Then it talks of women and children. Okay, so you know, in India we have a very big problem with the girl child. So that whole aspect. Then it talks of women in the church and the need for women to have, you know, the need for women to have their own spirituality, because women relate to God differently, and women have experiences which shape their spirituality in a very unique way, and this must teach the church. Then it talks of the need for women in decision-making roles in the church. So these are some of the aspects, and then the last part talks about implementation mechanisms, how this can happen, and also monitoring mechanisms. Yes, this policy has now happened in was released in 2010, and now it's 2014. See, I honestly cannot speak for all over India. I can just speak for Mumbai, although there was a survey which was done by Strimani Pune, it's a women's organization, and they found that only 16%, I think they surveyed about 100 respondents from 99 dioceses, and they found that only 16% had heard of the policy, 44% had not even heard of the policy. Okay, 16% had read it, okay, 44% had not even heard of the policy. So obviously a lot needs to be done, first of all, to even make the policy known. So I must tell you that at least in Mumbai this is being done. In Mumbai, there have been various efforts to create awareness about the gender policy. We've had the Women's Commission has taken this up, you know, on a war footing, and there have been awareness programs conducted in parishes. Last year's International Women's Day, the whole focus was on the gender policy. I know that we have the Archdiocese has a leadership training program, and they had, you know, they had me come and speak about the gender policy on their graduation day. So, you know, there is a lot of awareness being created, at least in Mumbai. One of the reactions, you know, like I said, I write, okay, and one of the papers that I write for is the Examiner, which is a diocesan publication. And I have found quite commonly when I write, I will get simple women, like what we call them, women in the pews, okay, who will come up to me and say, you know, I read your article and I really liked it because you said exactly what I would have wanted to say. So, you know, in that sense, yes, I feel good about being a voice for women who perhaps don't have either the confidence or the ability to articulate what they're thinking. So, in that sense, yes. I also see a lot of changes. So, for instance, I have worked a lot with women religious, okay, over these last 30 years. And I remember maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we had these training programs for them, one of the big issues was the whole, I would say two big issues. One was the aspect of sexual abuse, okay, and the other is the aspect of being treated as subservient, you know. So, at that time in the beginning, we used to just be talking about this, and we would be talking, you know, that they would be expressing their pain and what do we do kind of thing. But now it's very common that they have policies in place, you know, like how to address this, and they are a lot more compassionate to their sisters where things go wrong. Also the whole aspect of, you know, there's a lot more self-confidence and in their interactions with, let's say, the priests, the religious priests who they work with in their missions. Also, they look at more innovative ways of worshipping, where, I think one of the things was, I remember one of the complaints of these women used to be that, they want the Eucharist, the celebration of the Eucharist every day, and sometimes the priest would use the Eucharist as a kind of a bargaining tool. You listen to me or I will not come to say Mass for you, and you cannot do that. So you now hear stories of how they fought that, either with confrontation or with saying, okay, you won't have the Eucharist for us, we will have other ways of coming together and praying and worshipping, until you decide that, you see that what you're doing is wrong.